For this week's assignment, I watched the 2D animated film, The Secret of Kells. Prior to this, the reviews I read about The Secret of Kells revealed that the film would follow a story centered on Irish fables, mythology, and folklore. The film would have religious context and use creative 2D animation, rather than live action like our previous film, Lady Bird. Names that were mentioned several times or stood out to me were mostly Brendan, the main character, and Aisling, who was a sort of sidekick, along with mentions of Vikings and Brother Aiden, which sort of solidified the thoughts I had when I looked at images of the film and promotional materials, which were that this film centered mostly around monks. After watching the film, I can confirm that most of the claims made were correct. However, I felt as if the core struggles of the movie were not mentioned nearly enough. Though Aisling helps Brendan out throughout the movie, the characters that set the story in motion were the Abbot and Brother Aiden. Although the Vikings were mentioned as the antagonists, they aren't nearly as antagonistic as the Abbot, who is consistent throughout the movie and acts as the obstacle that Brendan has to defy repeatedly. Pruning the story down by implying the Vikings were more important than they really were takes away from the film's efforts to craft a very character-driven story. It's undeniable that the Vikings had an impact on the Abbot's behavior and that they caused a great number of casualties and trouble for the cast throughout the film. But in terms of relevance to the main character, I would say that the Abbot, being his uncle, definitely plays into the struggle that he has in trying not to disobey him and make him proud. A scene that may seem ordinary, yet stood out to me personally, was in the second to last segment of the film. I would say that although this scene is sort of like the calm before the storm, it would still fall into the disequilibrium segment of the narrative because the conflict has yet to be resolved at this point in time. This scene is in no way one of the most impressive scenes of the film, yet I gravitated towards saying it was one of my favorites because even just out of context, it gives the viewer a fantastic visual representation of the aspirations of these characters as well as their dynamics with one another. We get to see a tired Abbot with an even more exaggerated posture to show how tirelessly he's been working on the wall. It cuts to a scene with a stark, vibrant contrast from the last, showing Brother Aiden and Brendan working on the book together. A detail I really liked about this particular frame was the stars on the top left and right that they used to convey the passage of time. We see a hesitant Abbot looking at the area where Brendan is supposedly locked up, and the dark shadow of guilt that looms over him on his walk back. There's also a semblance of family, if not community, among the monks to work together to help Brendan achieve his goals. This frame perfectly demonstrates how solid character design can tell the viewer everything without saying anything. There are muted color tones and rounded edges among the lumped group, yet the Abbot is tall and dominating, with a bright red to black gradient on his clothes. Proving that looks can be deceiving, however, we shortly see an explosion come from Brother Aiden's workspace and a suspicious look on the Abbot's face. The Abbot is a fairly cunning man, so we're naturally led to believe that he's already figured out what's going on, yet he does not interfere, similarly to how he hesitated at the hatch and also foreshadows the eventual apology that he'll give to Brendan in the future. This scene is impressive because it uses techniques like its lack of dialogue and reliance on visuals that serve a purpose. This is not uncommon in film, as we see this trend in other movies, like Michael Dudukowic's Red Turtle. That is not to say that The Secret of Kells is a perfect movie, because there is no such thing as a perfect film, but there are definitely things that I felt they could have done better. One of these being that although I enjoyed most of the character designs, some of them were very stereotypical and almost hard to watch. They also left you with a lot of questions, which in some cases may be a positive thing to have an open ending, but some of them felt a bit unnecessary. They also seemed very willing to kill off any of their characters at any time, which I definitely found a bit odd, especially with how quickly the pacing went near the end. But overall, I did enjoy watching this film, and thank you very much for watching my analysis video.